Well, good afternoon. My name is Ben. I am back. It has been about a little over 48 hours since the Go St. Louis Marathon, after I crossed the finish line. And I wanted to just share an update on how the race went, everything that I experienced. And hopefully, if one person maybe out there finds some kind of joy in this, then it's worth it. I also, one of my favorite things to do other than running is talking. And I also like to write, but this is kind of the perfect medium to get my thoughts down on what it was like and kind of share that and then have it for the future that I can go back and look at. So I hope that that's what I do. So it's been 48 hours since the race, and this was on Sunday, April 3rd, I believe, 22nd annual Go St. Louis Marathon. Kind of a special, interesting marathon for me in that the very first marathon that I ever ran was in 2008 at the Go St. Louis Marathon, which I largely did because my dad and sister were going to run the half. My dad having never ran a half before, being that occasionally may have an ego that is enormous, decided that if he could run a half, well, then I can run a full. And it was a challenging experience, to say the least. I managed to finish that day and, of course, crossed the finish line thinking I am never running another marathon in my life, but we all know that's not true. So kind of what it was like. So it was a perfect day. So I think something to think about is that I spent 18 weeks training for this race. 18 weeks, when you're in it, can feel like a long time. I ran 6 days a week with Sundays off. Occasionally, my schedule would get flopped where I would have something I had to do on Saturday morning, and so I would run my long run on Sunday. But other than getting sick during my training one time, I missed 4 days of running over the course of those 18 weeks, and they were 4 in a row. And it didn't really knock me down too much. I was able to get right back up. It was COVID, and continue to hit my times. It wasn't easy per se, but I was still able to hit my times. But 18 weeks is a long time. And I had one goal in mind, and that was to qualify for Boston in 2023. I've qualified before. I've ran Boston before. I've came agonizingly close to subbing 3 at Boston before. And so I have a couple of goals left in my own personal running career. And one of those was to qualify for Boston again, maybe 3. One was to run under 3 hours again, and one was to run under 3 hours at Boston. So I ran and I apologize for saying so, I'm hearing it in my own head. I ran the Olathe, or the Garmin Marathon in Olathe, Kansas in the fall. Having not done a ton of training, but having done some running, but not really an established plan, and managed to run somewhere in the low 3:30s. And my qualifying time is 3:10 for Boston. So most of that race, I was very close to the pace until probably around the last 6. So when I got to mile marker 20, and it was difficult, very difficult. And my times just fell off over the last 5 or 6 miles pretty significantly, and I missed it by a lot. Wasn't necessarily upset that day that I had missed it so bad, knowing that I hadn't really put in the work. And you kind of get what you put in these things. And I knew I wasn't going to get it, or I knew I wasn't going to get it during the race. I didn't have a ton of confidence going in. But this one was a little bit different. The crazy thing about marathons and about goals and goal times and qualifying and all of that stuff is you do a lot. I mean, I worked really hard this time. I haven't eaten meat other than eggs and fish since probably in the fall. And it was more because I have, I've read a little bit and listened to some ultra runners talk about a plant-based diet, and didn't I my diet is not that great prior to this and still isn't that great. And I thought it would be a challenge if I eliminated all meat things. So not being able to have eggs or not being able to have fish was going to be a real struggle for me from a nutritional standpoint. So I just chose to say, you know what, I'm still going to eat eggs. I'm still going to eat fish. It's okay. Um, I do eat a lot of fruit. I tried to steer clear from too many of the sweets, but I do love sweets. Um, and so it was an effort, and then I hit every single 106 runs. So I did 102 over that 18 weeks. And maybe with the exception of one, I did every single workout that I was supposed to do, including the times that I was supposed to hit. So if it was speed work, I hit it. If it was long days, I hit it. If it was an 8-miler on a treadmill on a snowy, crappy day in the middle of January, I did it. So I was very disciplined. I will say I was very disciplined this time. It wasn't easy, but I was very disciplined. So so this last weekend was a bit of a bear. One of my daughters was playing in a soccer tournament, and I coach her team. I also coach a track team. I also coach a recreational soccer team. And we had a tournament for my competitive team, my daughter's team. I had a track meet. It's called the Fun Meet, and it's for 3rd through 6th graders, primarily who have never ran in a track meet before, so they can kind of learn what the calls are like, the starting gun, a lot of those things. And that was on Saturday. And I had a friend celebrating an anniversary on Friday night. So, and track practice Friday night. So I coached track practice on Friday night. I woke up early on Saturday and went to a meeting I go to at 8 a.m. outside at this wonderful park in Parkville, Missouri called English Landing. Then I hurried from there to the Fun Meet, which started at around 10 a.m. And I coached the meet for a couple of hours, tried to be pretty light on my feet, knowing that I didn't want to spend too much time on my feet on Saturday. I left from coaching around noon and drove from Kansas City to my hotel in downtown St. Louis, the Missouri Athletic Club. Took me about 4 hours, a little less than 4 hours to get down there, and was really focused already. I had these things I needed to do in order to get down there and get going. And I did those things and got down there, went to asked the front desk worker if I was ready to check in, and my room wasn't quite ready. So I just quickly Googled how far it was to walk to Packet Pickup, and it was only about 3 blocks away. So I walked to Packet Pickup, and there was like a real expo. It was incredible. I haven't been to a real expo in years, and it was really neat. There was a lot of energy in the place, a lot of people having a good time. It was really kind of nice to walk around, dream a little dream of some very cool things that I saw that I wish I could have. Went and got my bib, number 122. Went and picked up my shirt and my swag and all of that stuff. And then walked back, stopped at, I believe it was like a Dollar General, but not one that I had seen before. It was kind of in one of these kind of skyscraper type deals. Then went in and got, it's going to sound crazy. I went in and got a big bag of spicy Doritos, 2 bananas, 2 sugar-free Red Bulls, a loaf of bread, and one of those tuna packets, lemon pepper tuna packet. Now, from a fueling perspective, on Friday night, I had made an entire box of penne pasta, boiled it, and then also just made a very light olive oil, chopped pressed garlic, and butter and some salt as my kind of very thin sauce. Mixed that all together, put it in a giant Tupperware, and I ate the entire thing from the drive from Kansas City to St. Louis. So in 4 hours, I ate all of that pasta. And that was my primary fuel. Knowing that the race started at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, I don't really think what you eat the night before is really what you're running on. It's really what you eat almost 18 to 20 hours before. So I totally loaded on carbs. Was delicious. Drank an entire Nalgene, probably something almost similar to that, a really big Nalgene of water on the way down as well, and then finished another half of one that night as I was laying in my room. So I got that food and stuff. It's comfort food, really, and I mentioned in my diet, I weighed 161 pounds on the Friday before the race, and that is the lightest I have been for a marathon in probably a decade. So I knew I was in, I knew I was fit, I knew I was lean, I knew I had done all the work. So I felt confident, but at the same time, I made a huge mistake at coaching soccer practice about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks prior to the race. I ran down a hill chasing after a soccer ball after I hadn't warmed up. I just walked out of my car and came to soccer practice. Kids are kicking it around. Somebody misses the goal. I go racing down the hill. Didn't think anything of it at the time. Felt something kind of tight in the back right of my left butt cheek. I was like, oh, that doesn't feel great. But didn't think much of it necessarily until that next day when I was at the gym trying to do a single leg squat and could not do one with my left leg. The pain was very excruciating. But I thought, okay, I had still already done my run for the day, so I felt okay enough to run. So I figured just grin and bear it. Um, and then I have a lower back issue that happened probably a decade ago, at least. I picked up something wrong and either slipped a disc or did something in my lower back and have had some issues since then. I just have to be very careful about the way I pick things up, um, about making sure that I do these daily stretches and exercises that I try to do every day and manage it like we manage a ton of things in our lives. It's just what we have to do to find the peace of mind that we're looking for. So I was a little nervous about some of that stuff, but anyway, into, I picked up my packet, got some food, went back to my hotel room and had told myself, okay, I'm not leaving. Like it was probably 5 and I'm like, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to set all my stuff out. I'm going to take a picture of all my stuff because that's what we do and then post it to Instagram so everybody knows we're running a race. So I did all those things, got everything ready. I had gone to the thrift shop about a couple of days before and got some throwaway sweatpants and a throwaway hoodie that I bought for like $6 total that I could wear to the starting line since it was a point to point. It wasn't a loop and I didn't want to be cold and I knew it would be cold in the morning and I wanted to be ready and prepared. This is kind of a theme. And so, sorry, I tossed and turned, watched some shows on my phone. It was the Final Four weekend. My wife's a huge KU fan. Her team won. And then did finally, set like 3 alarms. So I had everything ready to go. I had everything everything set out, everything ready. And knew I didn't want to carry my phones, didn't want to carry anything like that. All I needed to have was from top to bottom, I have a yellow headband that says Coach Ben that my soccer team got for me a long time ago. If you're not counting the sweats that I was wearing to the start line, then I had a white kind of technical t-shirt from the Kansas City Marathon from 2009 that I wore, that I had my pin on. I had these short Adidas, they're not really running shorts, but they're kind of short, and my daughters would be mortified. They just freak out if I wear them in public. Like if their friends saw me wearing them, they would be so embarrassed. They're just so funny. So they're short, but they're fast. I like to race in them. And then boxer briefs, to give you too many details. I wear Band-Aids over my nipples because you make that mistake one time. I had some technical Smart Wool socks, and then my Hoka Carbon X marathon race shoes that I probably only had about 30, 40 miles on them. The first expensive pair of running shoes I've ever owned. My in-laws say I'm so tight, I'm squeaky. So to splurge on shoes like that was a pretty big commitment. And I think it also spoke to the seriousness with which and the focus and determination that I was taking this race. I really took it seriously. So I got all of that done, finally fits and starts over the night, 3 alarms set. Had to wake up because I knew I was going from the hotel, walking about 3 or 4 blocks to the staging area where the buses were. And the buses would take us from essentially the finish line to the start line out in Forest Park, which is a beautiful, wonderful park that everyone should visit if you ever go to St. Louis. So the buses took us out. I sat in the very back, had a moment of panic in that I probably should have chose the front because my lower back is finicky enough that we hit a couple of large bumps where I came out of my seat, and it did, make my back kind of tingle. And so I started to sit up and kind of hold myself up almost the rest of the ride there. So got to Forest Park, got out of the bus, had about, I would say, 35 minutes. So it was probably 6:25-ish when I got off the bus. I had a banana the night before, didn't have any of the bread or the tuna, but had half the bag of Doritos and the Red Bull. In the morning, I had about 3/4 of another banana and about half a can of that Red Bull, and had about a cup or a cup and a half of water in the morning as well. Now, I also carried one more thing. I was wearing this Nathan purple tiny little belt that I think you can wear for your bib, but it has this little pouch on it that I could fit 5 goos in. So I had 5 goos, strawberry or wild berry, tri-berry, and then so 3 tri-berries and 2 of these like high octane goos that have like caffeine in them. And told myself, okay, you're take them at a regularly paced interval over the course of the race. So I did those things, and I got out of the bus, started doing my warm-up, had all my stuff on, ran probably for about 5 minutes solid, ran for 5 minutes, and started doing some dynamic stretching. So that's like chair sits, scoops or sweeps, lunges, high knees, butt kicks, some sprints, a whole bunch of different things after the 5-minute run. And then I hear, as I'm kind of heading toward, because I'm in Corral A, which is also funny because I love it when the announcer said, the elites in Corral A will start at sharp at 7 o'clock. And I'm just thinking to myself, elite, sure. And that's not what I would call myself. But they said we had to be in the corral at 6:40. So I'm thinking I'm going to stand there for 20 minutes. Oh, I'm so stoked that I had remembered, or I had planned ahead with the sweatpants and hoodie, because there were a lot of folks that were standing up there that were in shorts and a t-shirt already, or shorts in a tank top, race tank, whatever. I don't want to lose any of that warmth and that readiness that I had prior to it. I even had a sock cap on, forgot about that, from the Trail Nerds, the Trick or Treat Halloween 5K that they do. This orange bright hood sock cap that's actually too small for my giant head, so it doesn't really go all the way over my ears. So I thought I could sacrifice that one to the race gods. And go through all of these things, get into the corral at 6:40, get ready. I'm still moving around. I'm doing the deal where you're standing by the metal barrier and I'm holding onto the barrier and I'm swinging my leg this way and then I'm swinging it this way and then I switch and then do this way and this way. So really trying to make sure my hip flexibility is there, that I'm ready, because I know if this is going to work, if I am going to run 3:10 or God help me under 3 hours, I am going to need to be ready to run pretty fast when this starts. Now, I will say I use these things called pace bands. There's a company called Races to Remember. I'm not getting paid. These are just people that I've been using forever. What I like about it is it allows you to put your goal pace, so that's on there. It has a specific strategy, and I use what's called modified warm up, which means I'm not actually hitting under my goal pace until mile 4. So you kind of ease into it. You don't just blast out. Well, I buy these. I actually had 3. So I have this one that was for 259. I have one that was for 303 and one that was for 307. 307 is the one on the bottom of my wrist. And then I put the 303 on top of that and then the 259 on top of that. So I like to have them all ready so that if as soon as I know I'm not making one of those goals, that one comes off and I'm starting to focus on the next one. So again, trying to be prepared, disciplined for what I'm trying to accomplish. Beautiful day. It's probably in the 40s. The sun is just peaking up at 7 a.m. when we're starting. So I'm an early runner, especially my long run days are always in the morning. So this was also conducive to my times that I like to run, like the actual physiological times I like to run. So all of those kind of stars were aligning. Well, the race starts and I went out pretty fast. In a pretty good clip. I was moving pretty fast. I'm gonna kind of cheat and stare at a couple different things that I have. I have another phone pulled up that has some of the actual race splits on them that will give you a better idea of times. I also have my Strava on my laptop in front of me here that would have some things as well. For anybody that is interested, it's Andale Racing Club, or Being Ben Keefe is kind of how you can find me online. But I went out, felt pretty good. It's a little. There are some hills at the start. Most of the hills in this race are at the start, so you have to kind of contend with those, and kind of getting the first 8, I would say, miles is where you're gonna feel a little bit more of it and have to deal with it. So I started out pretty good. I went out faster than I knew I should have. Quite honestly, I did. My pace band said I needed to go out in a 7:20 for my first mile, and I went out in a 6:35. Then I was supposed to hit a 7:15, and I did a 6:47, which was me trying to be reasonable with myself. Like, oh, that's probably too fast. But I had not looked at my watch at any point yet. The third mile was a 6:30, and the fourth mile on my pace band says I need to run a 6:40, and I ran a 6:35. So I was moving pretty good, but I felt really good. I knew my heart rate was low. I could just feel it. I didn't feel like I was breathing hard. I felt good. My leg turnover was very easy and efficient and fast. So I was out, I was ready, I was going, I was moving. I was passing people. I was trying to stay with people and not get too far ahead of myself. So the first checkpoint was at this relay station 1, which I think is probably around 6 miles, maybe. I don't actually know. And when I came through there, my pace was a 6:27. I was averaging a 6:27 mile up to that point. It took me 37 minutes to get to the first relay station. That first station, there had been a fair bit of, I'm looking at the course profile now, some of the bigger hills were out of the way then, but most of the hills in this course are 2 mile 13, through the first 13. So I felt good. Around mile 7 or 8, I hooked up with this gentleman who was passing me. Now this was almost a first for me. So I had this gentleman passing me, and he had really heavy footfalls, so I could hear him. And so he passes me, and I was able to pick up my pace and stay with him and not feel it. Like I wasn't dying here. I was able to, pick it up without going into some higher level of heart rate or some heavier breathing. And he was breathing hard. And so I stayed with him for quite a long time, almost to the half point. So now at mile 11, I was now at averaging I had been averaging up to, for the first 11 miles, 6 minutes and 35 seconds. So this is under my goal pace by, well, if I was going to sub 3, by under 15 seconds. So I was banking a lot of time. And I do think about that. I did look at my watch at 13 when we split, and the marathoners went one way and the half went to the finish line. Around 13, a little after 13, it gets flat. You're right along the Mississippi River, running on a paved trail that runs right along the Mississippi. The only little uphills and downhills you have from that point on are going up the levee, and then you're running on top, and then back down to where you're running right by the flood wall. So, and they're pretty, they're not, they're not long, but they can be a little steep. But I had lost that guy, so I was feeling good, and I had told myself, okay, you'll look at your watch at 13, and you'll know how much time you've banked for the second half of the race. And at 13, I came across at the half marathon in 1:26:13, and I was running, averaging a 6:35 at that point. So again, I'm like, okay, Ben, like you're feeling pretty good. This is all right. I wasn't really suffering. I didn't feel terrible. Things were in a good place. My mind was right. I was thinking a lot about all the things that I had done and the people that have supported me through all of this, not just in running, but in my life, trying to be very thankful and a kind of an attitude of gratitude as I'm, kind of hustling along. At the half, I was in 19th place overall for the marathon, which is absurd. But I didn't know this yet. I'm saying that because I can see it on on the thing afterwards. But so I'm going, and I caught another guy around over the course of the next few miles, and passed a gentleman. His name was Pat, who's 84 years old. And what I kind of liked about this section of the course is that, so when you hit past 13, when you see 13, you saw like 26 a little bit after, like the big flag that said 26. And so then when you got to 14, it was a little bit after, you saw 25. And so I knew, like, kind of, okay, was able to have some mental landmarks for where it was going to be when I was coming back, which I like that. It kind of helps you to chop it up into smaller, more manageable, bite-sized type of pieces. Still no one had passed me, so I'm running in terms of even passing me coming towards me, because then I was going to start counting people, because I like that too, because it allows me to take my mind off what's going on and start thinking, okay, let's see what place you're in. And that lasted for about 8 people when I finally started seeing people coming the other way, because I couldn't, somehow I just couldn't do it. But I'm going, I'm up, I'm having fun. I'm at this, so I have, to back up a little bit, at mile 4, maybe 5, at 10 or 11, and then at 16, so 4, so probably 5, 10, 15, no, it was probably 4, 10, 14, 18, I took a goo at each of those mile markers. Sometimes when there was an aid station, so it was easier to wash it down, or sometimes I would just take it and then wait for the aid station if I could see it far enough away, so then I could get kind of the stickiness out of my mouth. So I'm hitting aid stations. I like to slow down so much that I walk for about 5 or 10 steps and actually drink half of the cup of water before I put it down. I don't like to just try to blast through there and grab it while I'm running fast. It just doesn't work for me. So I slowed down every time to get my water, and so I wasn't drinking any Gatorade, only water. Gatorade does not work well with me. So I'm doing what I'm doing, and I got to probably around, let's just say that it was right around 20. I want to say it was right around 20 where we had or maybe 20 and a half where the turnaround was. So you're seeing more people who are cheering, some more spectators giving you love, which does help to charge those batteries a bit, kind of giving you some of that love. and was coming through we were up on the levee at this point, running on the concrete, and it's very sunny, so you're not in the shade. And I had really tried to stick to it whenever there was shade to keep that core temperature down. It was going to be in the 60s by that afternoon. But at this time, it's still only 9 something, in the morning. So it still wasn't too warm, but that sun beating down on you can be pretty warm. I was sweating pretty good. So I'm starting to have people pass me the other way, and I'm trying to count. I got up to like 8, and then got passed by a gentleman who a lot of people knew who he was because he got a lot of people cheering for him. Stryker was his last name, and all I could think about, and I stayed with him for quite a while. Every time someone yelled out his name, all I could think of was the movie Airplane. Probably showing you how old I am, but I love that movie, and I'm pretty sure the pilot is Stryker, who is one of the main characters in that movie. I digress, but it was in my brain, and I was laughing about it because I love that movie. So I'm running, and I get to the turnaround and come back, and I'm like, okay, so this is 19 and a half miles to turn around, and I am at 2 hours and 9 minutes. I had averaged, at this point, I'm averaging a 6-minute and 35-second mile. So I am significantly under my goal pace so it's I'm at 2:09:01 when I hit the turnaround. So 19 and a half miles. So I have 6 miles, a little over, about 6 miles, 6.5 miles left, 6.7 miles left, and have an hour to hit my goal, to get under 3:10. So that was my first inkling that, you know what, this game might have something here. You can hold on. Just keep doing what you're doing. Focus on not ticking off the miles. Just tick off the next mile, tick off the next mile. Felt good. Kept going. Was in 20th. I passed another person. Poor guy was in some distress. Now he had folks around him, but he could tell his stomach was having some stomach issues. And so I passed, and I'm in someone, and I hear someone say, you're in 19th or you're in 18th or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, this is absurd. I'm kind of laughing. And another note for my own self, which helps me understand where I am, like how I'm feeling physically, is when I'm doing an out and back like this, I try to say good job, not to everybody that passes me because they were starting to come in much larger groups of people. But if someone says good job to me, I like to say thank you, or good job back to them. I like to try to thank the police and the volunteers that are holding up traffic if it needs to be at certain intersections, all those things. Again, trying to be thankful and get out of myself. And I was still able to say it, which meant I'm not in some big distress yet. So I'm feeling pretty good. We're going along, and I get to, I'm almost to the end here. But I was feeling good, and I knew, when I was a freshman in high school, the first soccer practice we had for tryouts was we had to run 4 miles in 30 minutes. That was like the fitness test. And I did it. And I remember thinking, and I still think about this to this day, that if I can run 4 miles in 30 minutes, I must be in pretty good shape. And with 4 miles left, at mile 22, I had probably, to hit 3:10, I had 45 minutes, probably, something like that, somewhere around there. And I knew it. I knew it. Unless something goes catastrophically bad, I'm going to make my goal time. I'm going to make it to 3:10. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it. And so I clip off 22. I got passed, but at this point, I think I'm in I don't even care. Who cares? Who cares? And it was kind of nice to be passed because it gave me somebody else to focus on and try to pick up my pace and my cadence a little bit as I was going. And I would sneak. This is now I'm sneaking peeks in my watch now. From about 20 on, I'm sneaking peeks every mile at my watch. And I'm looking down to see what is my pace. And I'm still right at 7 or under 7. And then at mile 25, or from 24 to 25, I ran like a 7:04 or 7:05. And I'm thinking, I am gonna do this and I'm gonna sub 3. That's what was even crazier. I knew it. I was like, I'm gonna sub 3. I am gonna sub 3. And I'm starting to get, I was getting very excited. And I got to 26 and I looked at my watch and I had, or even 25, and I looked at my watch and I had so much time, and I knew it. I knew it. Like, I'm gonna get under 3, and I'm gonna get under 3 by a lot. Um, and there was this hill. They did put the finish line on a really steep uphill, uh, but I tried to push it. It's all relative at this point, and I could see the clock and the finish line, and it's at 2:55 something, and I'm like, I'm getting under. I want to see 2:55 something, so I kind of try to pick up my pace and get to the finish line, and I crossed the finish line at 2:55:37. That's a 6:42 ish mile for 26 miles. That's the fastest marathon I've ever ran in my life. The fastest marathon. I didn't know if I would ever run that fast again. I didn't know if I could ever run that fast again. Um, it's funny. I usually get pretty emotional at the end of the races. Um, sorry. But I knew my wife and kids weren't there this time, so I'd be able to probably hold it in a little bit better and not get so emotional. It's weird that I'm getting emotional now. Um, uh, but it was such a great day. I didn't know if I'd ever have a day like that again. And just everything came together: the weather, the people, the encouragement, my family cheering for me from afar, all the workouts, the dieting, the preparation, the sacrifices, the determination, um, the support of so many people who care about me and were cheering me on from afar and sending me love, and kind of all those things. It still feels really, really good. Um, and I guess I'll wrap this up with, uh, no one cares about really the rest of the day. I mean, I made it, mission kind of accomplished. Uh, so I had to drive home. So I drive back to Kansas City, and I have a meeting that I lead at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights. And I have a friend named Chuck who's really important in my life. And it's why I called him on the way home. And I said, "Hey, Chuck, I did it." And he asked me what my time was, and I told him, and he was just like, "You were insane." But he's very proud of me. And he goes, "Hey," his wife's name is Pat. He goes, "Hey, Pat wants to know if she can make you a cake." I said, "Yeah, I'd love a cake. That sounds fantastic." And so she made me a cake, and he brought it to the meeting. And it had the Boston logo on the top of the box. It said, "Way to go, Ben." And I open the cake. It's vanilla. She knows that's my favorite. And it's like yellow and blue, so it even has kind of the Boston colors in it. And he goes, "Yeah, she cooked it with sprinkles in it to get those colors." And I'm like, "Wow." He goes, "And she wanted me to tell you that sprinkles are for winners." Sprinkles are for winners. It was a good day.